Live, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. We're moving on to Oregon today, which should be a fun discussion. And, of course, we've got some scuttlebutt on this Alabama quarterback battle, which should be very fun to talk about.
Yes, we will get to the Alabama quarterback battle. Ryan Grubb, the new offensive coordinator, or technically former offensive coordinator, because he got hired.
Well, he didn't call anything. He didn't do any play calling.
I guess. But regardless, Ryan Grubb did make a statement about his three quarterbacks today. We'll get to that. But I do think something massively is getting missed in that article that nobody's talking about. It has nothing to do with quarterbacks. It has something to do with defense. So we will talk on that.
Okay.
Got to do a little investigating. But why does Ryan Grubb say all three are being inconsistent? Does that mean somebody on defense is doing something special like Dijon Lee, who is probably the biggest riser out of spring camp when it comes to Alabama football? So we'll talk on that. Oregon deep dive, as you mentioned. Joe, I don't know how to take this. They're replacing a lot.
It is a very weird projection for Oregon because they've got one of the best coaching staffs just overall, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, Dan Lanning leading the ship. They've got some really young, talented players, but yeah, there's a lot of turnover. There is a lot of turnover at a lot of positions, which I don't think that people realize that drop off, those losses, it could hurt them. Now, I have faith that they're well recruited enough, but it is probably one of the biggest storylines in college football that we have to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's difficult to win the Big Ten or the SEC back-to-back years by itself, much less losing a lot of players like that and then having to repeat what your ultimate goal would, could, or should be. So we will talk about the Oregon Ducks, and if we have time here at the end, Joe, Jaden Rashada versus Florida and Billy Napier is still going on, and Jaden Rashada gets his wish. That will be going to trial sometime this summer.
That update was so unexpected for the main reason that I think that you and we both talked about it when the suit was announced, that the expectation was that they didn't have – not that they didn't have a leg to stand on, but it felt like it was a little bit unrealistic that a court was going to find that this was a legitimate argument. The dismissal being thrown away and this going to court, I wonder if this, and we were talking about this pre-show, I wonder if this ends up getting settled. I wonder if Florida doesn't want to deal with the headache. More importantly, I don't think Florida or Billy Napier want to have that type of an accusation on their track records going forward for the future. I said this back when a show that was airing on Stadium, when we talked about this, I said that I wouldn't trust a damn word coming out of Billy Napier's mouth if something like this ends up getting proven.
Well,
and I would be worried.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying that was all I had. I'd be worried.
On the flip side of that, not to defend Billy, but this kid seems like a little bit of a head case, if you ask me. He's going to his third school in 12 months.
Well, the counter argument that I could play, and then I'm sure that that's going to get brought up in court, and this is a little soft of a thing to throw out there, but one could argue that the total lack of trust that was created by the whole Florida thing and how he reacted and responded to it has affected his path and his ability to find a new school. That's what the argument I would hope that Rashada's lawyers would bring up.
I mean, that's. You know what? If I'm any attorney, you know what I say? Oh, it's difficult at Georgia, who won the SEC. Oh, okay.
Okay. But he wasn't going to get on the field. That's what the issue is.
Did you see Gunnar Stockton? I mean, they're in the whole.
That's the whole point
right now. I mean, he could have if he just.
Well, I think it had more to do with Puglisi than it did with Stockton.
Oh, by the way. Did you?
Send me that clip.
You saw, oh shit! Dude,
I'm telling you, I've been trying to tell you.
Hold on, we're puffing up a kid, Ryan Puglisi. Watch him not start. Watch him not start. Watch him be Gunnar Stockton.
just because he doesn't start this year doesn't mean that in 2 years he doesn't end up being a great starter. Just kind of like Gunnar Stockton didn't start for a few years and he played really well in the SEC championship game, and then he could go on to play really well for Georgia this year.
I could already hear Joe now. Puglisi's got the juice. That's something that you would say.
I've already been saying that. So that's invalid.
Well, that is very true. By the way, I listened to you and Ryan today.
Which take caught your attention?
Oh, you'll talk offensive tackles today. Y'all posted it. You knew what I was listening to. Don't act like you don't.
Oh, you watched the offensive tackle video. I thought you were talking about our live show today.
Well, number one, I think the biggest thing is that was my observation. It's a shitload of tackles in 2 rounds that y'all have grades on. That's y'all did 9.
Well, we have the guys that we placed. Wait, hold on. The guys that we had placed in the top 10 that had second round grades or higher. There's a lot of really good tackles. I don't think that there is a tackle in this class that is a top 10 pick. I think that there's a lot of guys that are worthy of going in the first round or going in the early second round that can go on to be really good starters. I don't have issues with Will Campbell. There's no issues with Will Campbell. I just think
I can't believe it. I can't believe
the arm length thing could end up hurting him. There is a certain possibility of that.
Bro, y'all stop with that arm length shit. Bro, y'all talking about arm length.
It's a historic outlier. He's a historic outlier. There's nothing wrong with bringing that up.
You know who else was an point. You know who else was an outlier with something that was on their upper body? Joe Burrow. He had small hands. Remember that?
Okay, the hand thing is a lot less of an. The hand thing just leads to fumbles. That is the only reason why we bring up hand issues.
Doesn't fumble the football.
And the only reason why we talk about hand size for quarterbacks is let me finish. The hand size thing for quarterbacks only gets brought up because it could lead to fumbles. That's it. It has no effect on anything else. The arm length thing merely is brought up because it is a requisite measurement that typically is correlated to success. Guys that are under 33 inches, and I think he was like right at 33 at his pro day, which, shocked that, the number ends up being bigger later on in the process because these guys stretch out their arms during their pre-draft process and shit. I did the pre-draft process. I know how it works. I still think that he'd be a better guard. I would rather he play guard. There's nothing wrong with him playing guard, and I think he would be an all-pro guard. That's why he was number 2.
Yeah. I know how the conversation's going, y'all's pre-production. Hey, Joe, but put Will Campbell at 2 so we can piss off Blake. I know it.
Nope.
I know
it.
So in that saying, and all kidding aside, I love the video, to be honest with you. I love hearing like we're big man, we're going to go, but that's a lot of tackles, man. It's a lot of tackles that can go in the first and second round. That I think what it tells me is, we had a down year in college football. When things even out up front, that's when all chaos breaks out. So that's what it tells me, and that the draft is bearing that out. All right. But I'm just kidding. It was a fantastic video. I just wanted to give you some shit. All right. Here we go. Everybody do us a favor, though, by hitting the like and share show to all those groups if you are on Facebook. And if you're on Facebook, share to your own social media pages. Bigger now, Joe. Our friends over at Facebook hooking us up in stream ads. So I'm sorry you have to see them, but shout out to Zuck for paying us. Also, if you're on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that like, subscribe, notification bell wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Joe, before we get rolling here and talking about this Bama quarterback competition.
No, I have not been tracking
Paddy Pimblett. Paddy Pimblett. Some believe he could be the next Connor because of how crazy he is. He's not, but your boy over here loves some fighting. So I will be definitely tuned in. Well, I do. I love UFC, to be honest with you. I just love boxing, UFC, MMA. It is really fun. But you know what also has been very fun here, Joe, is this Alabama quarterback competition is really heating up. Chris Lowe of ESPN reporting, coming out with an article today in reference to the quarterback position. Ryan Grubb, the offensive coordinator, in this article, basically it's come out with Chris Lowe and others that although the decision will ultimately come down to Kalen DeBoer, his right-hand man and Ryan Grubb is going to have, and to quote here, a very much integral say about how all things conduct offensively, was asked a question about his quarterback competition, which Ryan Grubb said that no one has separated. All are playing good, but Joey does say this: none are playing great at the current moment. He said the thing that I am looking for from all three is that they got to be more consistent. This sounds like coach speak, but the way that this is written, I don't know if it is. It does feel like to me that this could be coming down to Simpson and Mack, because Chris Lowe only talks about them in that article. But Joe, as we get into Bama post Jalen Milroe here, I guess your thoughts on this quarterback competition.
I thought it was really funny that the comment made by Grubb was that they're all playing good, but they're not great. And I feel like what made it so entertaining is that we're so used to hearing about how great everyone is, how everybody's standing out, how everybody's shining, and like we can't make a decision because everybody's doing so well. But Ryan Grubb was incredibly candid in saying that, yeah, they're kind of rough around the edges. The options we have right now amongst the three guys that are competing for the job aren't as sexy as maybe many would hope that they would be. Part of me wonders, and I don't think that Ryan Grubb would be so direct and honest to indicate that, like, hey, this is an issue. I'm not going to sit here and do the overreaction and go, oh, shit, they're screwed. They don't have an option. They don't have anyone to turn to. They're going to be completely tanked next season. They're not going to be able to move the ball. I really do wonder, though, that if maybe there's going to be an unexpected outcome here. I know that Ty Simpson has been projected. Yeah, Austin Mack, I think it would be the most unexpected option here. I wonder if that because they're so close and he's not being super he's not
pushed,
hyping them up, that Austin Mack might end up sneaking his way.
Well, they want Ty Simpson to stay. They don't want him hitting the portal. Right. I don't know if I mean, we talked about this with Ryan Day and them. Why would they do that? Why not let him go out there and compete? Joe, people have been out there, right? And so here's the thing. Since people have been out there and people do go to practice, and for what it's worth, Kalen DeBoer's opened it up more than Saban ever did. I mean, it's just different coaches have different, things about them. But I think the thing here is very interesting with this quarterback situation is that people have gotten eyes on these one-on-one reps, 11-on-11s, and it hasn't separated. So then Chris Lowe comes out with this article, okay, and are we going to act like Chris Lowe, who's been so much involved at the University of Alabama, doesn't know? So he put two of them in there. And in that article, he talks about Ty Simpson, he talks about Austin Mack. He said in the article, and I'm summarizing, that Austin Mack which could feel like a long shot, might not be. So to your point, might not be. It just tells me that I'm going to say this. I do feel like that we just have an outright battle here. I don't think that there's any fluff. I think that both of them, they're trying to get and see who can win it and let the best man win. I do feel like it just appears to me, though, coming from other media sources from Alabama, that Ty Simpson might be the guy. But you brought up a point that I think maybe the last time that we really sat down and talked about Alabama was like, well, Blake, Ryan Grubb was who recruited Austin Mack. He goes to the University of Washington. He follows them to Alabama. Ryan Grubb leaves. Ryan Grubb now comes back. He does have an upper advantage in reference to Grubb. So which means technically, Joe, probably who the guy that they want to win this job, that probably being Austin Mack, I think that the simple fact that Ty Simpson's saying, hey, the old Lee Corso, let me get a pencil. Not so fast, my friend, feels to me that he's done a little bit more maybe than they thought that he would. Because I do feel like, because you brought up the good point, and when we knew we were going to talk about this, I've been thinking about it all day. I was actually sitting on the bike, and I'm like, you know what? I remember Joe bringing that up. I do feel like we just have an outright competition, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't know where to lean as of right now in reference to who wins it. I think we're still way too early in this process. Now, if some other things start coming out and we find out, that's one thing. Are you surprised, though, that Chris Lowe didn't even mention the young rookie in Keelan Russell? Like, it's not even a thought at this point. Because look, a month ago, don't sleep on Keelan Russell. Don't sleep on him. And then now all of a sudden it's Ty Simpson and Austin Mack for the fight out in this one.
No, I'm not surprised by this because a lot of the things that if you listen about Keelan Russell that were leading up to signing day and his commitment when he changed his commitment from SMU to Alabama and when he was shining and was really starting to have this lead up over the last summer of going from a 4-star to a 5-star, finishing at the top of the class as one of the best quarterbacks. A lot of things that were acknowledged that he is a very good athlete. He is a very raw passer. He needs to improve. I think that if you start Keelan Russell, that is a sign of, in a way, desperation. That you don't feel satisfied with the two options that you have, which are two competent, athletic, quality options that have the tools to start in the SEC, that you're so desperate that you have to turn to the promising young freshman. Not every freshman needs to start. I think that we were blessed with a very unique class last year of freshmen with Dylan Raiola and DJ Lagway, and also the receivers, Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith, and all these guys that had insane seasons as true freshmen. That is not typical. It is very out of the ordinary that true freshmen can play the way that all those guys did, let alone be ready to start. So, no, this doesn't surprise me. I will say it again.
Well, they're faces of the season. Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, if you remember the cover of EA Sports, they're the front two guys on the cover.
Right. To be at that level, a guy like Keelan Russell, I'd rather he just sit. I think that there's nothing wrong with guys just sitting and developing and growing and wait until it's year 2 or year 3 for him to take over.
I will say this. Look, I've been and covering a team when these quarterback positions happen. People normally want to see the guy that stuck around and fought to win the battle. Right? Like, I mean, because in today's world, that doesn't happen. How many times could Ty Simpson have transferred? How many? I mean, when Saban retired,
3 years. Yeah.
When Saban retired, he could have done it this year. I mean, a lot of people trend to that. I do think people just want to win and they don't really care. I wonder if Austin Mack does give you a higher upside. And that ultimately is what beats it out here. But Ty Simpson, Joe, I wish we had more of an update. I do think that people lean, and I talked to some people that cover the team just individually. Listen, in their opinion, what they told me, I don't know this to be factual. They do still feel that Ty Simpson will win it out. And it makes sense based off of Chris Lowe's article in the sense of if Austin Mack, look, if the coaching staff was saying like, hey, push this Austin Mack thing out here, like that he's pushing. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to slice the pie. So look, Alabama post Jalen Milroe, but here's the thing, Joe. I like Jalen Milroe. I had higher expectations on him, and I know you did as well. Yeah. Coming into last season, I think they're upgrading. With whoever they go with.
Whoever starts, you think well, I think that naturally there's going to be an upgrade for the reason that whoever starts has been there for multiple seasons. Austin Mack has been playing in the scheme for now 2 years. Ty Simpson's been there for a year.
It's just a scheme for me. Jalen Milroe's not built for what they wanted to do, bro. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, they need somebody who's a little bit more of a poised passer, and Milroe won with his legs, and it felt like there were times that they weren't setting him up to succeed as fully as he could, hence why down the stretch he struggled as much as he did.
Joe, they're asking a guy that was not good at throwing intermediate passes. I mean, let's call it – you watch Washington film. Tell me if I'm lying. How much mesh do they run?
A lot.
They would a lot. A lot. I mean, how many times did they run double cross with a tight end underneath and a wide receiver behind? I mean, it's the staple of what they do. And a guy was not good at intermediate throws just couldn't do it. So, look, it's always fun with a quarterback battle. It makes and look, when you go into a season with Alabama, you're asking your question. Now, almost forgot to say this. You know why he brought up the inconsistency? Me and Ryan Grubb. I was given to this by a media member who's been on our show multiple times, arguably one of the biggest for Bama. This kid, Dijon Lee, the freshman, apparently has picked off multiple quarterbacks multiple times in multiple high-level situations, multiple times in the red zone. He got a PBU that was posted by Alabama in a closed practice in the red zone. Maybe Bama found a DB. Who would have ever thought?
Well, their whole not receiving room, their whole corner room and their whole defense has some sneaky good guys that could end up exploding as young starters. Damani Jackson's another player who I was really impressed with last year that transferred over from USC that I think is going to have a huge impact. I think that their secondary that was inconsistent last year is going to take a huge step forward. Like that to me is going to be the biggest thing for Alabama and probably something that we talk about when we do that 2025 preview.
Alabama, always interesting. All right, Joe, let's move to this. So, Joe, we continue on our deep dives here. We've been hitting some of the top teams around college football. Tonight, we hit our good friends over in the great state of Oregon, the Oregon Ducks. The first year in the Big Ten, the champions of the Big Ten were the Oregon Ducks, but they got a lot to replace, Joe. I mean, we can name all the names offensively and defensively, do add a lot of big additions like Donovan, Alexander, and Johnson. When you look at Oregon this year, man, I mean, it's tough to repeat even when you have everybody returning, but how do you see this year going for Oregon?
The starting conversation point that we've had in every single preview has been, who are they losing? Who are they bringing in? They're bringing in a very big group of transfer portal players that are going to be important starters for them this upcoming year. They're losing a lot of guys that are going to go on to be highly drafted in the 2025 NFL draft that started at key positions. Derek Harmon, Jamari Caldwell at their defensive line, Jordan Birch as well, Josh Connerly and Johnny Cornelius, both of their offensive tackles, Tez Johnson, Dylan Gabriel, Jordan James. There is a large core of guys at very, very important positions that they're gone, that are now going to be replaced by players that are pretty inexperienced or completely new faces. I don't say this, Blake, to incite any fear. I have high faith and high expectations for what Oregon can do. I trust Dan Lanning. I think he's a great coach. But when you have this many transfers starting at tackle and at safety and at running back, at multiple offensive line spots, it does tend to lead to a high variance of outcomes. It can lead to a lot of issues because you're hoping a guy who was recruited and developed at another program can step up and play for your team. I don't think it will cause problems, but that is the first thing that stands out to me, Blake, is that they are relying on a very talented transfer portal haul, but a lot of transfer portal players to have significant impacts.
So let's touch on that. So, look, I have 5 key points when it comes to them. Let's talk about the transfers. I'm with you at tackle, right? Like when you go into the portal and you get Alex Harkle and you bring in Isaiah World. Now, a lot of people want Isaiah World. I mean, let's not act like Oregon was the only one offering. Ohio State, LSU, Georgia, Texas, a lot of teams offered World in that portal process, okay? I'm interested to see what happens with him because he was so highly coveted out of the portal. He goes to Oregon. The last time Oregon went in the portal and got a tackle, it benefited them, and it worked for them. Let's see if it happens again. Here's where I will push back a little bit on the portal thing for them. Here's why. I look at the defensive line, Breland, one of the top defenders in 2 year ago's class. You got Gray. You have Elijah Rushing. Joe, that's all guys that redshirted last year for Oregon that were top 25, top 50 guys coming out of high school, right? Like top high-level elite recruits. What I do think here for me, and I'll get to offense, defensively, I don't know if they're not better. I do think that the portal haul for them defensively might actually benefit them a little bit because now you have a year or two with that elite defensive line that you recruited 2 years ago. I mean, Joe, 2 years ago, we were talking about the recruiting class, if you remember, and we were like, dude, a couple years, this D-line's going to absolutely take over. We literally called it Georgia out west because it's exactly what Kirby did. Did he not? I mean, I remember that being the storyline. I don't know if defensively and what was the biggest issue that they had down the stretch, which was what, Joe? They could not stop the running game. They couldn't do it to save their life. In the beginning of the season, I said, Joe, they look too leaky to me. And we had that discussion. We came back in the middle of the season. I mean, okay, they won against Ohio State. Then it continued to matriculate. They've got a lot of young, talented freshmen that have redshirted going into year 2. They got a lot of big defensive linemen returning. You're bringing in Thieneman. You're bringing in Bear Alexander. Can he finally hit his ceiling? Can he be the one that finally – can that be the place with Dan Lanning where he finally hits the season? I don't know. Let's hope that it is. But here's the thing for me. As high as I am on them defensively because of how they stocked up in high school recruiting, and Joe, they did that at DB this year and how much they loaded up there. The question for me is, can Evan Stewart stand up offensively? Is he a true number 1? Does DK Moore or McClellan have to be one of those young freshman standouts that comes out of nowhere? Now, you went in the portal offensively and got Malik Benson. My worries for them has nothing to do defensively. Okay, they were leaking the running game a year ago. I think that that's going to get better based off the recruiting and development that they're doing. Offensively, at the skill position and at quarterback is I say concern. Let me not say concern. It's my biggest question marks with them. Joe, I've told you my thoughts on Evan Stewart. I don't know if he can be a true number 1 dude. I do actually believe that Malik Benson of Florida State, DJU was throwing him the football. If dude had a quarterback, I don't know. We'll talk about Malik Benson if we need to. It's more of what you have under center and what you have out wide that we just need to see what happens here. And by the way, you're replacing an entire running game damn near too.
So there's 2 things that you brought up that like caught my attention that I want to focus on here. Quarterback, I'm not worried about. Quarterback, I don't have any feeling that there is going to be.
You just think Dante Moore just comes in after what happened at UCLA?
It has less. It is a number of things why I have faith that their quarterback situation is at the very least will have a high floor, and that it's not going to be a liability. If there is a liability with this Oregon team that holds them back and that costs them a game or 2, it's going to be something else. It's not going to be the quarterback position for 2 reasons. You have a former 5-star quarterback who had ups and downs as a true freshman, but still had flashes of supreme talent, arm talent, touch, timing, all the things that you look for in a premier starter, and the types of tools that are coveted by Will Stein in this offense. And I also think more importantly, Blake, we have had back-to-back quarterbacks that when they have started and they stepped in Bo Nix and Kenny Dillingham's scheme, and then eventually in Will Stein's scheme, and then Dylan Gabriel and Stein's scheme, there was no drop-off. There was no issue. There were very few, if any, games, maybe the Rose Bowl with Dylan Gabriel, where the quarterback play wasn't good enough. I feel pretty confident that Will Stein is going to figure out how to set up Dante Moore to succeed and for him to play well. They do need to get bigger impacts from this receiving group. William McBride pointed out, can you get a guy like Jurian Dickey, who was highly recruited? I remember breaking down his high school highlights when I was doing a little bit more recruiting coverage a few years ago, and I thought he had some potential, and I'm shocked that he hasn't contributed more because he is a very gifted player. They have the bodies. They just need to step up. But speaking of bodies, here is where my attention goes, and this is purely an inference. This is an outsider's view on this before any Oregon fans jump on me and try to provide any context. When you have to bring in 3 new offensive linemen, Emmanuel Pregnon, Isaiah World, and Alex Harkey. One, living by the portal on offensive line has not paid good results. It just hasn't.
True.
You brought in a Johnny Cornelius who played for the team that I played for at Rhode Island, and he was great, but that was one starter on your offensive line. When you have 3 starters from other teams, it has not been an approach, a roster building approach that has produced consistent results. It is all over the board. Look at the teams that have had to do this before. And it signals to me a lack of belief in the recruiting that your team has done along the offensive line. I don't know if that means to me, Blake, that they don't have faith in the current group of guys that were coming up. And I don't know if I should have faith in a team that is starting 3 new players.
I mean, their interior offensive line, though, I understand what you're saying. But, Joe, can we just be blunt? Down the stretch, I don't think they played well at all. I think that was the
I
reason
don't
that,
disagree.
I think that was the reason that Penn State did what they did. I think it was the reason that they ultimately failed in the second time the way that they did. It's not like they were lost to Ohio State. It is what it is. John, they got blown out. They got their doors blown off. I mean, like they got dominated. I mean, that shouldn't happen like that. I would say that you're – I don't know if we've had a team like Oregon that's had to do this, though. Like a team that's been that damn good that's had to do this. We've seen Oklahoma had to do it. We saw Texas under Sark early have to do it, and it really hurt them. That's why when Kelvin Banks as a freshman comes in, he starts immediately. We've seen some teams do it. We haven't seen many that have had success with it. Hardly nobody's had success with it. Like, literally talking about Oklahoma, they did it last year, and Joe, they got their doors literally blown off every game. I mean, like it was bad. I don't know if that happens at Oregon. I know that they probably feel that their interior offensive line will get better. We'll see there. Joe, does the massive departures at DB worry you at all? I know you bring in Thieneman, but Thieneman's one dude.
Well, okay, you're losing Jabbar Muhammad and like – what else am I like really? I'm not. It's not like I'm losing a future top 10 pick, first round pick. Like I'm not. I don't know. I'm not freaking out at their secondary.
It doesn't matter if they're first or second
I'm
round
more
pick.
worried about their defensive line, if anything. Like the defensive line, you're losing 3 starters.
But see, here's the thing with them. Are you not going to develop the 3 5-stars that you recruited there in
that's
year
the
2?
Answer to that question. That's the answer to that question.
But I don't know. I do not know if that's what they've done at DB. I mean, they did it this year. Maybe a freshman can come in and step up. I don't know. But look, there are question marks around Oregon now. And I know that we have a massive Oregon fan base in here, and we love them to death. But we're not going to sugarcoat this for you. I mean, look, I guess we'll see there. I love their additions. I mean, Oregon just feels like a place to me, Joe, for what it's worth, that I just don't see them falling outside of 10-2. Like, regardless of what happens. Now, we'll talk about their schedule in just a moment. I mean, their 2 biggest games, I don't know. I think it's up in the air.
They have a very favorable schedule that I think is like we'll get to that in 1 second. But my final thought of just like looking at their roster and the expectations, I think that it is critical that they're bringing back Mateo Uyunglele, who has the potential to be one of the best defensive linemen in the country. The fact that they've gotten multiple 5-stars, former 5-stars that were transfers, Evan Stewart and Dante Moore, that are stepping up at key positions, quarterback and wide receiver. But to address like the question that I'm putting out there of like, hey, you brought in all these portal guys and they're all supposed to contribute in roles that you're losing all conference players. What is going to happen there? I don't feel overly worried because they're not just putting together a ragtag group of randos. They have put together a group of traitsy, athletic, and potentially dominant playmakers that were important for their teams. Guys that were highly sought after for a reason. Dylan Thieneman, I have talked very highly of, and I think that he is going to be a leadership presence, an instincts presence in the back end of that defense, playing strong safety. And he's only going to get better not having to do everything like he was doing at Purdue. And Isaiah World is an enormous behemoth who should be a good starting tackle if they can develop him like they developed Josh Connerly and a Johnny Cornelius. Pregnon's a good starter. I know USC fans lose their shit when you bring him up because he left, but he's going to a better program and he's going to contribute for a team that's going to be competing for a national title this year. And outside of that, like Mekhi Hughes, we've talked very highly of Mekhi Hughes and how good of a running back he is. And he might even be the best running back that they've had over the last 3 years, better than Jordan James and better than Bucky Irving. So I bring the question up at the beginning of this segment to round it out with, yeah, they've got a lot to replace. And going into the portal to replace those players is sometimes a scary approach. But if someone's done it right, it's them. They're not They're not
Yes.
desperately going after guys with character issues or players who couldn't start on other rosters like Florida State did a year ago.
Bingo. When other programs do it, you're like, uh-oh. When Oregon does it, you're like, uh-oh.
Florida State did it with a bunch of backups from Alabama and Georgia, and they stunk.
Well,
Not a good example in this conversation.
But
That too.
I do need to see them have a weapon on the outside. I'm not sold on Dante Moore yet, and nor why should I be? Anybody that comes in here and goes, dog, he was a 5-star, he did this. You at that position, you excuse me, you got to prove yourself too. Kid can be a Heisman Trophy winner for all I know. But
you say that now, he'll go on to win the Heisman.
well, that's why I literally said it in there. He might,
right.
For all I know, he could go in there and win the Heisman. What I do feel like though, I just don't know if Evan Stewart is a true number one. You are here it's a bad combination though in some senses. You got a new offensive line that doesn't have cohesion. You got new wide receivers that you need to break in. You bring in Malik Benson. You got some young talented freshmen. How quickly can they pick it up? If anybody else did that in the country, you'd be worried for them. Joe, as we look at their schedule, your thoughts when you go down their schedule.
Yeah, so to rip through this, they host Montana State, who is replacing a very important core of starters that got them to the FCS National Championship
No
game.
one
So
knows
this
more
is
about FCS football than you. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just pointing that out that like this isn't a trap game. It's not going to be. They're starting a new quarterback. There's a lot of turnover on that team. Versus Oklahoma State, they host Oklahoma State. Alan Bowman is not there for his 10th season. They go to Northwestern. They host Oregon State. They go to Penn State. Bye week. At home versus Indiana. Travel to New Jersey versus Rutgers. Back home against Wisconsin. Bye week. At Iowa versus Minnesota versus USC. And then at Washington. So there's quite a bit of travel. And I think that the biggest standout to me about their schedule, Blake, is that they do not see Ohio State. They do not see Michigan. But they still have to battle it out with USC, Indiana, Penn State, and Washington, which will all be formidable opponents.
Brother, this is light.
It's an easy schedule. It's not as easy as Penn State's, but it is an easy schedule.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. This is not me talking because I'm just going to point this question out. You know what the narrative of Oregon's going to be, huh?
What?
Who have they played?
Well, I would argue, depending on how. Well, if they lose to Penn State, they're not going to have many good opportunities after that.
Because Penn State. No, I'm not going to accept that because they're going on the road. Okay, literally, Ohio State went on the road last year and lost to Oregon. If anybody should know, it would be Oregon. But Joe, Penn State might be the number one team in the country when they go up into Happy Valley.
Right.
Oh, you lose to the number one team in the country? No, I don't think, and let's just say it's a 3-point game. No one's going to say that. But, Joe, what I'm saying is at the end of the year, say you have another team in the Big Ten that faced 5 ranked opponents, okay, and they're 10-2. I mean, when you go based off of comparison and seeding, I mean, this is light, brother. This is light as shit.
They had not the same schedule, but they had a similarly easy schedule, and they won in that home situation against Ohio State, which helped carry them. They beat Ohio State, and then they had the best resume, having that nice win against Ohio State for many weeks, and then there was no moving them because they just kept winning games. I think that the difficult circumstance of having to travel to Penn State.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, when you have to go to Penn State, and we talked about this yesterday, I give the edge significantly to Penn State because they have a returning core, a better returning core, and it is a cross-country trip that is also apparently very hard to fly into that airport. So that is just something to pay attention to, that like this is not an easy trip to go to Penn State.
Gavin says, Blake, you better give that exact same response to Indiana. This
is a harder schedule. This is a harder schedule than the Indiana schedule.
It's a harder schedule than the Indiana one. But here's the thing. They went 10-2. They got blown out by the 2 ranked opponents that they played. Joe, there's not a ranked opponent on here besides Penn State.
They were 11-1. They were 11-1.
Right? No.
No, they were
They
11.
lost, they lost to Penn State. No, they lost 2, correct?
Dude,
Or
I
was
don't
it
even.
just
I
Ohio
complete-
State
I-
that they lost to?
my mind is screwed over from like just
Maybe I'm thinking of
throwing
them
away all the
losing.
information from last year. No, they were 11-1. Their other loss was to Notre Dame in the
Okay.
playoff.
Oh, okay. So they were 11.
The problem was is that they played all the bad teams in the Big Ten that year. last year.
So was Oregon.
Well, Oregon gets to face what's hopefully going to be a better USC team. Washington, we've talked about, is going to be a lot more competitive, and we're probably going
So
to do
they're
a
playing
preview on
one
that.
ranked opponent. I mean,
Indiana's ranked. Indiana's ranked at the current moment, and Washington will probably finish the year ranked.
okay, I'm not giving you Washington. Stop. 2. I don't think Washington.
Why wouldn't you give me? Why? I think that they are. I think Washington's going to finish.
I'm not going. I'm not
We're
going.
going to do that. We're going to do that preview, and you're going to be changing your mind. We already looked at the Jonah Coleman pictures.
Oh God, yeah, I remember that.
This isn't a cakewalk questionable schedule.
Oh
if they
no.
lose
Okay, now
this is not an easy one, but it's not like I wouldn't give this as like a 1 out of 10. I would give this at least a 5.
Compared to every other ranked opponent that will be in conference championship weekend, take their schedule versus the schedule you just saw. Who would you take?
Wait, say that again. I don't know why that didn't register.
Let's just say that there's 8 conference champions or 8 conference champion contenders. Okay. And we're in the last week before we get into the playoff, and it's championship weekend for the conferences. Oregon's going to have one of the lighter schedules of all those teams that you'll see in that championship weekend.
I haven't looked at any of the other schedules, so I can't say that with certainty. And also, Penn State's schedule is equally as light. They don't play Michigan next year. Oh no, wait! I think they have Ohio State and Oregon.
Yeah, they have Ohio State and Oregon.
Oh, wait, no, they don't. Wait one second. Let me pull.
Yeah, Penn State. Penn State go. No, Oregon goes to Penn State, and Penn State goes to.
Oh,
Ohio
they do.
State.
Yeah,
Yes,
they do go to Ohio State. Yes, but the Penn State schedule is technically harder. I don't completely accept that notion. So I think with this schedule, you have to go 11-1 to remove any concern of if they belong in the playoff or not. I think that there's enough challenges on here. A 10-2 season still gets them into the playoff.
I'm not going down that road with you.
Really? Come on.
No, they're going to play one ranked opponent, one quality ranked opponent.
They're going to play. Indiana will be ranked at the time that they play. I mean,
Eric
will be ranked at the end of the year.
You know good and damn well what I'm trying to say. Like,
this is
okay. Hey, how about this? Let's throw up Ohio State's schedule, brother. They're going to face two top 4 teams in the country. They got Texas coming into town. They got to go to Penn State,
Michigan, and Penn State,
and Michigan. So
they host Penn State. They host Penn State.
I mean, excuse me. Okay. So they got both big games at home. Okay, whatever. Let's not act as if having 2 top 4 teams on your schedule is not a massive deal. It is a drastic deal. So, by the way, I mean, again, as I'm saying, when I look at that versus the other potential conference champions, this will be one of the more lighter ones. Your ceiling might be 11-1, 12-0, but because of this schedule, 10-2 is not created equally to me in your own. Hold on, before y'all say SEC, I'm literally talking about your own conference in Ohio State. Joe, let me ask you this question. Let's say both of them are 10-2 at the end of the year. Ohio State's lost.
Put both of them in. I would put
auto buys that Greg said he wants.
Both 10-2. I'd put both 10-2 Oregon, Ohio State. If there was Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, I'd put all 3 in. I would keep out any 3-loss SEC team. They would get completely cast aside, and I'd keep out any 3-loss. I'm not talking to you. I'm just talking in general. And I would keep out any 3-loss Big Ten team. And I would only put in 1 Big 12 team and 1 ACC team, and I would be very satisfied with that projection.
You know good and damn well what I'm saying is true.
I understand what you're saying, and I'm not completely rejecting the notion, but I'm pointing out that the schedule will prove to be more difficult than it looks at the current moment. I'm not saying that it is a difficult schedule. Not what I'm saying at all. I'm not trying to claim that like this is a 9 on the scale of 10 and they're just really going through it. And if they go 10-2, that they're an elite team. Not what I'm trying to argue. Not at all. But by the end of the year, Washington, a win over Washington is going to look better. A win over USC is going to look better than people think. A win over Indiana is going to look like a good win. Oklahoma State's always a question of how good and competitive they're going to be. They could be one of the top teams in the Big 12. We don't know. They're always a damn wild card. I'm not.
What's that Notre Dame schedule look like? Is it lighter?
Because they got Arkansas.
Yeah, they got Miami and A&M.
Yeah, and Arkansas.
How about that? Okay. See, even Notre Dame's playing some big boys. You got to go down to that. Woo! Pig, suey, Razorback.
I'm debating going to that game because I think
I will tell you this: you would. Well, if Arkansas is winning, it will be a great time. If Sam Pittman is fired by then, it might even be a better time.
Well, I'm going there to watch Notre Dame beat them. I mean, I got to see Sam Pittman's honkers in person, so I get you got to.
God bless America, Joe. Come
before he gets fired.
I had to lose my honkers. Your boy was getting some honkers around here.
You need to put Sam Pittman on.
That is true. Last thing for me with Oregon before we move to this last piece here. Dude, I will say this now. At the end of the year, if we're looking at that defensive line, Ian Breland, Gray, Elijah Rushing. Joe, this is normally when look. Here's a hot take for your ass. This is normally when Kirby's got his best defenses, when he has a massive class of DTs. They go into year 2. It's normally when they lock shit down now. I'm just going to throw that shit out there. So, all right, they're my sleeper defense of the year. And I know that, Blake, oh my God. But no,
I don't disagree.
Well, if you understand the context, if I just came out, Joe, and put on Twitter, Oregon defensively is my sleeper defense of the year. Everybody like, well, of course, Oregon's always good defensively. The context would have to be added into that. That D-line might be something special. All right.
Well, wait, before we move on really quickly, notice how they didn't bring in – they brought in one defensive tackle transfer.
And the guy that recruited him at Georgia is there.
Bingo.
Right. Like, I mean,
the D-line's going to be good, man. It's going to be a good D-line.
Well, let's just say hypothetically, for the current moment, that he gets enough out of Bear Alexander that we should. Breland's still in there now.
Yeah.
Elijah Rushing is still there now. And Gray is still there now.
There's a lot of talent.
It's a shitload of talent. Joe, we saw this before. Hold on. We saw this before. You ready? Kirby's first national title. In a lot of ways, it's similar. It's whole secondary gone. You bring in an elite safety. You have redshirted freshmen / sophomores that were all 5 stars coming in on your defensive line in year 2. Does any of this ring a bell? It does sound like Oregon to me. By the way, before we talk about quarterbacks, Stetson Bennett. Okay, like I mean, oh, by the way, I mean a former 5-star player came in as a freshman and locked down. That being Brock Bowers. Is that DK Moore? I don't know.
There are similarities to be had.
There are similarities.
It's a good point.
I'm just going to say that on April the 9th, if they do win a national title, I told you guys on April the 9th that they were going to win it.
I'm not going to let you claim that.
Oh, if that's the national narrative, if somebody ever publishes that, this is kind of what it looks like with Georgia. Oh, you best believe I'm coming. That's what she said. All right. Joe, before we get out of here, so Jaden Rashada, the name that I kind of sometimes wish would go away at this point, is back in the news with the University of Florida. So there was a dismissal hearing that took place in the state of Florida that was denied. There was something part of this that was thrown out, the conspiracy to commit fraud. and divulge on the state of Florida and of Billy Napier was thrown out. The civil case of them not paying him when he came in is still on. Joe, I was telling you, we were talking about this pre-show, a dismissal. Basically, you got to prove that you have enough probable cause or that you have enough sustainable evidence to move to trial. That means this decision today comes down that Jaden Rashada's team was able to prove that they needed to go to trial. I do think that that's a big deal here, and yet here we go in another feed in this. I'm starting to get a little sick of this now.
I don't think this is the end of this either. And look, we're not projecting what's going to happen here. This is all still alleged. We're moving on to the court case. I'm not a legal expert. We're not going to pretend to be. But one of the things that caught my attention, and as I was reading up on this, one of the quotes, once Jaden committed to UF, rather than make Jaden rich as promised, these people with Hancock leading the charge changed their tune and went back on their word. The amount of UF-affiliated NIL money available for Jaden decreased drastically. The lawsuit claims that Napier was promised a $1 million partial payment to Rashada's father when the quarterback prospect signed his national letter of intent, but that the payment was never received. The whole premise of this was that I didn't fully understand what the argument was by Rashada's side and his lawyers. I just thought that they maybe duped him and then suddenly the money wasn't there or it wasn't the full amount. But it seems like what is being described, contract? He did. Well, actually, I don't know. Never mind. I don't want to speak to that confidently. But what was described in these articles was that they told him that $13+ million was what he was going to be given compared to the $9 million that he agreed to from the University of Miami in order to get him to flip. They dragged him out. They made the process go as long as possible. By the time that there were no options on the table for him, that money was suddenly gone. Or it was at a completely more decreased, smaller rate. If that's true, that's pretty nefarious. I mean, that is really messed up. I would think, again, not a legal expert, that they would try to settle this, because if you've got something like this over your head, that you're rug pulling on recruits, that you're promising them the world, and an insane amount of money that most guys can't even dream of, and then completely taking it away from them in order to just get them to commit, that is not going to work well on Billy's track record, nor will it work well on Florida's.
It's so wild because they literally turned right around and got DJ Lagway.
That was before the lawsuit, though. Because they actually paid
before
him.
The lawsuit, but it wasn't before all the shit went down. I mean, the shit went down, and then they were able in that process to get DJ. Can I be a little blunt? I mean, can we call it like it is, or do we have to pussyfoot around this situation?
I think you can call it like it is, but I think we just got to be
okay. I'm going to call it that
nothing's proven yet.
Well, okay. Here's an opinion. This is all alleged. I have no idea who is and isn't guilty. How about this? I'm starting to think that the kid might be a little bit of a head case, and the people in his camp might be a little bit of a head case. Joe, everywhere he's gone, there have been issues, and he's left.
Well, wait, okay, but hold on here. Arizona State, he leaves. We don't know the reason, but they were a complete shit show mess, and we didn't think anything of it. We thought that oh, look, he's going to Georgia.
They made
he's
a playoff without him.
He's jumping. I don't know if he was. Well, they weren't. They were awful that first year, so the jump was unrelated. I think that was unrelated to him, and I think that him going to Georgia, we all kind of looked at that as oh, he went to his best option in Arizona State, and then he transferred to the better situation where he could eventually start. And I think he stepped in, and then Puglisi shined, and then it became pretty clear that he wasn't going to beat out Puglisi. And then now he's looking for something else, and now nobody wants to touch him because of all of this. So I see what you're saying. I just don't I don't think it's totally fair to make that assumption.
Every time, let me ask you this question. If the kid was talented, and I'm not saying that he's not, and he left Georgia, then why is his only offers like Tulane, whose quarterback just got arrested? And then Mensa goes to Duke. So they need a quarterback. You want me to tell you why? Because nobody wants to touch him.
My thought process.
You know what he is? He's Malachi Nelson without the lawsuit, or with the lawsuit.
No, because Malachi Nelson didn't get on the field at USC, and there was a reason for that. Jaden Rashada played at Arizona State in spurts
because there was
I
nobody.
believe he got banged up,
job.
but he showed some really promising throws and some really promising film. Like, he's a lot better than Malachi Nelson, but I would argue that nobody wants to touch. No Power 4 teams want to touch him right now because they don't want to get involved with this lawsuit. They don't want to get involved with the lawsuit. I don't think it has anything to do with him.
I don't think they want to get involved with the kid. They getting involved in the lawsuit. What has the lawsuit got to do with them? Their school has nothing to do with that.
I think they just don't want the negative attention that it's going to bring.
Well, I don't think that teams necessarily want to touch him either because, Joe, he might not be good. Like, we don't think about that.
I don't want to make that. He played, though. We saw him do things that most true freshmen can't do, make throws that most true freshmen can't do. He didn't light the world on fire. He had 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. But for a true freshman to step in on with an awful roster, I think he showed some good things. No, that was in the Pac-12 at the time. He was in the Pac-12.
No, I mean, Pac-12 had 2 teams. Everybody else was dog shit.
No. When he was in the Pac-12, that was the historic year.
That was Washington and Oregon.
Yes.
Name another that was worth a shit.
UCLA.
UCLA, they went 8-4.
They still finished the year. That was like one of the best years that the Pac-12 had for ranked teams.
You're right. Look, the kid might have gotten duped, and I'm not saying he didn't. He's just starting to become a little bit fishy to me. That's all I'm saying.
That's fine. I totally get that.
All right. We'll see y'all again on Sunday. Until then.
TBD.
No, Sunday. They'll see us Sunday. All right. We'll see you Sunday. Until then, y'all have a good night. Peace.